Ever get that, like, really intense get feeling?
Yeah.
You know, that something's not right,
Yeah.
and it just won't let go.
Oh, yeah.
That's what we're looking at today. This is about Kathy DeBono, and it's like a truly terrifying experience she had that turns into, well, this mission for justice, you know?
It is wild how she goes from like barely surviving this encounter to taking action, like almost an, I don't know, like an avenging angel kind of thing.
Yeah.
All because she's so sure this guy who murdered Christy Johnson, who she didn't even know, could have done this to other women too.
Right. Like she just felt she had to, like, find out what really happened, not just for Christy, but for all the other potential victims out there. What's so interesting to me is how she uses, like, her background, right, as a psychotherapist and an actress to do her own, like, investigation, you know?
Yeah, that background definitely gave her like a different way of seeing things. She's not just like looking at the basic stuff, but she's thinking about like what makes a killer tick? What kind of behaviors might show a history of violence?
So, got to start with the case that sets all this in motion: the murder of Christy Johnson in the Hollywood Hills. Such a tragic story. A young woman, 21 years old, murdered. And it's Victor Paleologos, the guy Kathy had that scary run-in with years before, who gets convicted.
And the stuff that came out during the trial, it's truly disturbing. Paleologos had this whole like way of operating. He'd lure young women with promises of modeling gigs, using this messed up Bond girl fantasy to like manipulate them.
Like straight out of a nightmare, right? Preying on their dreams to, like, gain their trust. What's even scarier is that during the trial, other women came forward. They told stories about, like, their own close calls, really similar situations with Paleologos.
And those stories really show a clear pattern. Like he was a predator.
Right.
And it totally supports what Kathy was thinking, that this might not have been, his first crime.
Yeah, it's like all these separate stories were puzzle pieces, and she was determined to put them all together. And that determination takes her to this cold case in Bensalem, Pennsylvania. They find a Jane Doe's remains.
The thing about this case that's so creepy is how much it's like Paleologos's other crimes. The clothes the Jane Doe was found with, they like hinted at that Bond girl thing he was into. And there were other things too, like her shoes didn't fit right, seems altered, suggesting she might have been forced to wear them.
Oh, that's chilling, like a horrible echo of what happened to Christie. But how does Paleologos even fit into this? This cold case was way before Christie's murder.
Well, it turns out Paleologos lived in Bensalem before he moved to California. So Kathy starts digging, trying to make connections, and she ends up working with Detective Chris McMullen. He was the one actively investigating the Jane Doe case.
It's like a real-life detective story, right?
Yeah.
This kind of mismatched pair, separated by like miles in time, trying to solve this mystery that's been buried for years.
Yeah.
What were some of the toughest things they had to deal with trying to, tie Paleologos to the Bensalem case?
Well, the fact that Victor had moved away before they think the Jane Doe died was a huge problem. But the most frustrating thing was that California wouldn't give them a DNA sample from Paleologos. Can you imagine? They thought they might be able to solve the case, but they couldn't get the evidence they needed.
That's got to be so frustrating, like having the answer right there, but you just can't quite reach it. So what does Kathy do? She's not one to give up easy, especially with that strong intuition of hers.
And this is where her being both a therapist and an actress, it really comes in handy. She decides to visit Paleologos in prison.
Wait, she went to see him in prison? That's got to be super risky.
It was. But Kathy, she had a plan. She wanted to try and like sneakily get his DNA, and she was hoping to get him to trust her, maybe even confess to killing Christy Johnson.
Okay, now this is getting really interesting, but don't prisons have like a ton of rules about visitors?
Yeah, for sure. But Kathy was smart about it. Remember, she'd been writing letters back and forth with Paleologos for years. So she used those letters to, like, become friends with him, acting like she just wanted to understand him, not judge him. It was a risk, using her knowledge of people to, like, manipulate a master manipulator.
Wow, a real mind game. She's using her training to, like, outsmart a convicted murderer. Did it work? Did she get his DNA?
She did. She was really slick about it, using a trick involving a drink they shared while they were in the prison yard. And about that confession, well, Paleologos did say something about Christie's death, but it was all made up. He claimed it was an accident during consensual sex.
That's almost worse, isn't it? Sticking to that lie even after he's been convicted. But wasn't that the same kind of thing he tried with Kathy years before?
Exactly. Shows he doesn't feel any guilt. And that he keeps using the same tactics, still living in his own messed up reality, even locked up.
It's a reminder that even in prison, someone who's that good at manipulating people can still be dangerous.
And it shows how brave and clever Kathy is. She went into a really tense situation with a goal, and she got it done. But this is just the start of her story. Don't forget about that documentary project. It's about to become a really important part of all this.
Okay, I'm hooked. Tell me more about this documentary. What was it supposed to be about, and how does it connect to all of this?
That documentary, you know, the one Kathy was working on, it had a lot of problems. Remember, this was before the Me Too movement really took off, so people weren't as aware of these kinds of issues, and it was hard to get money for projects like that.
It's kind of sad, a project like that with so much potential and it hits all these roadblocks. It seems like a real missed opportunity, especially for Kathy and the other women involved.
Yeah.
What about the DNA sample? Did they link Paleologus to the Jane Doe case with that?
The results were, well, not what we expected. Paleologus's DNA didn't match the fetal remains they found with the Jane Doe. It was a bummer, but it didn't totally rule him out as a suspect.
I can only imagine how disappointed they must have been after all that work Kathy did to get it.
Ew.
But I'm guessing they didn't give up, right?
Nope, not at all. Kathy and Detective McMullen, they were sure Paleologus had done more than just, what he was convicted of. They weren't going to let this stop them from finding answers.
That's what it takes sometimes, right? That gut feeling that something's not right is what drives these investigations. So what happened next? What direction did the investigation take?
Well, you remember how during the trial, Judge Perry, the one who sentenced Paleologus, he was all confident that he'd be locked up for a long time? Turns out the justice system had other plans. In 2022, California started this new program, an elder parole program, to try and reduce the number of people in prison.
So even though Paleologus had a life sentence, this new program made him eligible to get out early. That doesn't make much sense, considering what he did.
Right, and get this, they didn't even tell the victims about the parole hearing. Not even Christy Johnson's family knew.
Hold on, seriously. How can a system that's supposed to protect victims, keep them in the dark about something this important, like a hearing for the guy who hurt them?
It's a huge problem. It shows how the system needs to be more transparent, more accountable. Lucky for everyone, Kathy was keeping tabs on Paleologus's case. She found out about the hearing herself.
Wow, good thing she was paying attention. I bet Christie's family was devastated when they found out, hearing about it from a friend instead of officially. What did they do when they found out? Did they try to stop him from getting released?
Oh yeah, they jumped into action right away. Remember that group of women, the ones who shared their stories about Paleologus? They were ready to fight like crazy to make sure Christie's story and their own experiences weren't forgotten. They got ready to tell the parole board how his crimes affected them and planned to be at the hearing to make it clear this guy was still dangerous.
That's amazing how these women, after everything they went through, found strength in each other, using their voices to demand justice. Did they get to confront Paleologus at the hearing? What happened?
Well, right before the hearing, Paleologus decided he didn't want parole, chose to stay in prison for at least 2 more years before he could try again.
So he didn't even get to say their piece, share how his crimes messed up their lives. That's got to be frustrating.
You bet it was. No one's sure why Paleologus did that. Maybe he knew people would fight hard against him. Or maybe he's playing some long game, hoping people will forget and he can just slip out quietly later.
That's a scary thought.
Yeah.
A convicted murderer, manipulating the system from the inside.
It shows why we gotta stay vigilant, keep fighting. These women and Christie's family, they're not giving up. They're gonna be at every parole hearing, making sure no one forgets what he did and that the fight for justice keeps going.
It's really inspiring, their dedication. It shows the power of hope, the belief that even when things are bad, truth and justice can win out.
That's the message I want people to get from this. This isn't just a story. It's like a wake-up call. Pay attention, be careful, and if you see injustice, don't be silent. You never know how much your voice can matter.
Before we move on, though, what about the Ben Salem case? Did they ever solve it? Did they ever figure out who the Jane Doe was? It'd be incredible if she could finally get her name back after all this time.
Sometimes things work out in the most unexpected ways. Years later, in 2022, Detective McMullen finally got a break in the case.
Really? Tell me they finally found out who she was. After all these years, it would be such a powerful moment. What happened? How did he do it?
With new technology, using those genealogy databases and some really good detective work, they figured out that Jane Doe was a 17-year-old named Lisa Todd. She disappeared from Northeast Philadelphia back in 1985. Imagine that. Her home was just a short drive from where they found her remains all those years later.
Wow. That's both heartbreaking and incredible. So close to home all that time and nobody knew. Why did it take so long to identify her? Was there something that, prevented them from connecting her to the case earlier?
It's a sad story, really. A clerical error, they think, took Lisa's missing person report out of the system. After her 18th birthday, her case was basically forgotten. It shows how easily things can slip through the cracks, and how important it is to have a system that really takes care of the missing and the vulnerable.
It's a sobering thought. What about Lisa's family? What happened to them?
They spent decades searching for her, never gave up hope. It must have been a mix of relief and grief, finally getting answers. Not the outcome they wanted, but at least Lisa wasn't just a nameless victim anymore. She had her name back.
A bittersweet victory for sure. It shows that justice can come in different ways, and sometimes closure comes when you least expect it. What about Victor? Where does his case stand now?
He's still locked up, but like we said, he can try for parole again in a couple years. And you can be sure that Kathy, Christy's family, and all those women, they'll be there, ready to fight and keep his crimes in the spotlight.
They're really committed to getting justice, aren't they? It's a testament to, I don't know, the power of never giving up hope and believing that even in the worst situations, truth and accountability can win in the end.
It's powerful stuff. This wasn't just about one murder or a cold case. It was about victims being brave enough to come forward, about speaking up against those in power, and about believing that even when things are really bad, we can still fight for a better world where justice wins.
It makes me feel hopeful knowing there are people like Kathy DeBono, Detective McMullen, and Christie's family out there who won't let bad guys win.
That's exactly what I want you to take away from this. Remember, this isn't just a story. It's a call to action. Stay informed, be aware, and if you see something wrong, speak up. You never know what kind of difference you can make.
Those letters Kathy exchanged with Paleologus while he was in prison, the one she's like gain his trust and get that DNA sample, they must be pretty revealing.
Yeah, those letters, they don't have any, straight up confessions or anything, but they give you a look into his mind. Even after he was convicted of murder, his fantasies were still all about that messed up Bond girl thing. He described them in detail. It's creepy thinking about him holding on to those thoughts.
It's scary, right? That even locked up, he's still obsessed with those violent fantasies. Makes you wonder if someone like that can ever really change.
That's what's so disturbing. It wasn't just random thoughts. Those fantasies, they were like the same things he did to his victims, like a blueprint for his crimes, repeating over and over.
It makes you think, does the justice system really work? How do you change someone who shows no remorse, who keeps having those dangerous thoughts?
It's a tough question. This case makes us think about, what is evil? Can people change? When is forgiveness even possible?
This whole deep dive has been like a journey into the darkest parts of what people can do. But it's been eye-opening too. It's made me realize that justice isn't a one-time thing. It's a constant struggle, always pushing for accountability and truth.
Absolutely. This wasn't just about Christy or Lisa or even just one murder. It was about those victims being brave enough to tell their stories, about standing up to power, and about believing that even when things are really messed up, we could fight for a world where justice wins.
I'm walking away feeling, I don't know, hopeful, knowing there are people like Kathy DeBono, Detective McMullen, and Christie's family out there who won't let the bad guys win.
And that's what I hope everyone listening takes away from this. Remember, this isn't just a story, it's a call to action. Pay attention, be aware, and if you see injustice, don't stay silent. You might be surprised what a difference you can make.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. It's been heavy, but important. And until next time, keep asking questions, keep learning, and keep fighting the good fight.